This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are previewing the San Francisco 49ers Week 16 matchup against the Miami Dolphins. It is the battle between 6 and 8 teams that are somehow still trying to make the playoffs, hanging on by that very, very, very thin thread. I think as of right now, the Dolphins have an 8% chance to make the playoffs, whereas San Francisco has under 1% chance to make the playoffs this year. And I'm sure you're like myself, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't want to do this. I was sitting back like, do I really even care? Is the season lost? Why does it even matter? Just tank for a higher pick, pack it up, pack it in, move on to 2025, and I feel like that is the consensus thought of like, these last 3 weeks are because we have to play them, not because we want to play them, right? The season's over with. We're just wasting our time. Unless they're going to play the young players, what is week 16 through 18 actually worth for this team? But I will say this. The reason why this game matters is because although you have a less than 1% chance to go to the playoffs, that percentage is not zero. That percentage has not said officially eliminated just yet, so I get it. We're all down. It's been a rather disappointing 2024 season, and now everyone's focus is towards Brock Purdy and his contract in the offseason, and it feels like that has been the focus about San Francisco the last week or so after the Rams loss on last Thursday. But they still have a chance. It's not a big one. It's not a high one. And it's likely improbable they actually can make a run. But the San Francisco 49ers still have a chance to go to the playoffs this season. Thus, we have to look at this game through that lens. But first, I want to ask you to hopefully like, share, and subscribe to the video on the audio podcasting platforms. Give it that 5-star review. You can follow us on social media, and to help you out somewhat during the holidays, you want to see the Golden State Warriors play, you want to go pre-order baseball tickets, heck, maybe you want to see your San Francisco 49ers play before this season is over, go to SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase by using promo code 49ers Access. It's 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. That is my Christmas gift to you. And without further ado, let me explain how and why the San Francisco 49ers can still make the playoffs. Like I said, I get it. It seems like just call it a night. Wrap it up. Whether you pay Brock Purdy or not, we all want to forget and just move on to 2025, go on to the offseason, and just forget everything that happened this year. But the 49ers still technically have 2 paths to the playoffs. And the first one is through the division. Now, yes, I know that they lost to the Rams. It, again, feels like it's not going to happen. But after losing to the Rams, the 49ers technically still have a chance to win the NFC West this season. the things that have to happen for that to happen is San Francisco has to win out. They have to beat the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Cardinals this season, the next 3 weeks. The Seahawks and Rams have to lose their next 2 games. Not impossible, but they both have to end in a tie in Week 18, and the Cardinals have to lose or tie to the 3-11 Panthers at home this Sunday. So you are Panther fans this week, you are non-Seahawks and non-Ram fans the next 3 weeks, and you're hoping for a tie in San Francisco to win out to the NFC West. It's a lot, probably not going to happen, but there's a chance it does. For the wild card, this is a much simpler route to take. It's much more straightforward. The Niners have to win out. The Commanders have to lose out. The Cardinals have to lose this Sunday against the Panthers. The Rams must lose out, and the Falcons have to lose at least 2 of their next 3 games. So much more straightforward, much clearly wins and losses, whereas the division is a couple wins and a couple ties, and it just gets confusing, where the wild card still seems like if they can make the playoffs by the percentages, that is the most probable outcome if it actually does happen. But you have to take care of business this Sunday. You have to beat the Miami Dolphins this Sunday. The Dolphins are in a kind of similar situation to San Francisco, both teams 6-8, but unlike San Francisco, who has been decimated by injuries on their 5th string running back, it seems like this Sunday against Miami in Miami, the Dolphins didn't have Tua Tagovailoa for a few weeks. They didn't have their quarterback, which kind of ruined their year. They had Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley, and somebody else was in there for a hot second, I'm forgetting. But it was gross. It was bad. But now Tua is back. They're trying to kind of piece this thing back together towards the end. Unfortunately, the Dolphins don't really, maybe this year excluding, had San Francisco been playing this Dolphins team last year or the previous couple seasons, I wouldn't be scared. They are a rather soft team. You can tell the offense really doesn't have any grit to it, albeit this year for San Francisco, neither do they. So, but this Dolphins team, coming from that 2023 and 2022 Niners mentality, they're a very soft team, the Dolphins are. They have Tyreek Hill, and they have Jalen Waddle, and Tua Tagovailoa. It's a very finesse and speed kind of offense. They want to get behind you. They want to be able to beat you in space. They're not going to run. They're not going to go in the tackles and play this physical style of offense. I get they run a similar scheme with Shanahan and McDaniel, but the way they go about it is very, very different. This offseason, they lost so much defensive talent. It really is kind of this team looks like kind of the bare bones of last year's Miami Dolphins team. So that's why they're 6-8 on top of the injuries they've had. But I do think they're soft mentality-wise. You can tell that the Dolphins, of the AFC teams, you have the Ravens, and you have the Steelers, you have the Chiefs, you even have teams like the Broncos and the Chargers. They really just don't fit in. Those are going to be playoff teams. And even the Bengals, who aren't great on defense, even their offense is tough. They're throwing the football around, they beat you in your space. They have Jamar Chase, and they have an explosive offense that can beat anybody. The defense is just terrible. Whereas the Dolphins are kind of if we can get hot, if we can hit 1 or 2 plays a game, we'll feel pretty good. Tua's not having a great season. Maybe that's the concussions, who knows? But there really hasn't been a rhythm that has taken place in Miami this year, which, funny enough, again, feels very much like San Francisco. Both teams, similar schemes, players from both sides. Chris Forrester, San Francisco's offensive line coach, was in Miami. Obviously, Mike McDaniel and Raheem Mostert and others are in Miami now. And obviously, San Francisco has Chris Forrester and company here. There's so many similarities and carryover that this is going to be kind of a mirror image of each other on Sunday. Okay, is it going to be the old grizzled veteran head coach, or this young kind of up-and-coming, I guess you can say, run game coordinator? I don't want to call him a genius, but kind of a protege, if you will, in Mike McDaniel. Who betters the other? Who gets the best of each other? And these teams have met before, albeit in better circumstances. Think back to 2022, the Dolphins are in San Francisco, or I guess Santa Clara, and Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. Who comes in? Brock Purdy. The origin of Brock Purdy's incredible story begins against the Dolphins 2 years ago, and it'll probably be nothing at the end of time, but with their season, again, still somewhat on the line, you have to win the next 3 games. It is ironic you play the Miami Dolphins, this time in Miami. Hopefully, the weather's nice. I know it's December, and we're all kind of getting bundled up, waiting for Christmas to come and the New Year to happen. But I'm hoping in Miami it'll be a little dry for these dudes after the rainy day they had against the Rams at Levi's last week, and the kind of back-to-back cold/snow games they had on the road against Green Bay and the Bills. You're hoping for a dry weather kind of game out there in Miami. That said, you really only have to focus on a few players on Miami's offense. The first one being Jonnu Smith. I know you're probably like, who? Who's that? That's their tight end. Jonnu Smith has had a really slow start to the year, but as he's kind of gotten more comfortable in the offense and integrated himself more with Tua Tagovailoa, you've seen this massive explosion in production late in the year. In his last 5 games, he has 5 touchdowns. He has 45 targets on top of those 5 touchdowns. So he's getting 7 targets and essentially 1 touchdown per game with Miami. But I'm hoping that in the wake of Devondre Campbell's swift and not so smooth exit of the team, I'm hoping this can be a really good, I guess you can say, kind of look into what this linebacking core could look like next season. You have Fred Warner in place. He's the star. He's the all-pro. He's the leader of the pack. And you have Dre Greenlaw back. I think they're going to re-sign him if you believe what Kyle Shanahan said earlier this week. They want to. They want to get that done. Then you get D. Winters. This feels like that's going to be the group next year, or it seems that way. This is a good glimpse as to what that group can do. I'm not sure how much you put into PFF scores and grades, but that's a pretty darn good coverage group that they haven't had all year. Like, this is going to be their best coverage group of linebackers they'd have all year. And the great thing about this is hopefully Greenlaw's body can hold up for the entire 60 minutes, but you're getting a group that can really erase the middle of the field and cover tight ends and cover receivers, almost unlike any other group of linebackers in football. Obviously, Greenlaw's working his way back, and Winters is young, but this can kind of be that next iteration of Warner, Greenlaw, and Shire if Winters can continue to progress and kind of show some growth in that third linebacker role. And thankfully, with Devondre Campbell gone, I wish he would have quit 2 months ago, that Band-Aid's off. Like, here we go. Like, we are starting the young guy and the 2 incredible veterans next to him. I can't wait to see what they can do. They're going to be running around the field all day long, especially because the Dolphins are going to use Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Devon Achane and all the speed they have. They're going to see, like, the linebackers become so important into what a defense does against the Dolphins, whether it's screen passes or just kind of short yardage stuff. They want to get the ball into the hands of their stars and let their speed work its magic. And that's where your linebackers come to play and come into factor. I cannot wait to watch Warner and Greenlaw and Winters hopefully take this game over with and erase the middle of the football field, and also limit what the Dolphins can do offensively with their stars and their speed. This is why you go get Winters and draft him and hope to play him in year number 2. This is why you were kind of, last week saying, hey, Campbell, you're not going to play. We want to see what Winters can do next to Greenlaw and Fred. And it looked phenomenal. Like, it looked really good against the Rams, not be it different offenses, but similar systems. Although the teams want to do different things, you have these linebackers that can, like, they're athletic. They are sideline to sideline kind of players, even with Fred's broken ankle. Like, they're doing it all out there, and I'm hoping, and my eyes are going to be glued towards the middle of the football field. JD Durham says, thumbs up, and Jalen Graham. I don't think I'd put Graham in that group. He's more of a run defender. He comes downhill quickly, but he isn't the greatest coverage player, but a young player nonetheless, I would rather see Graham play than, say, Demetrius Flanagan-Falls. But we shall see what happens on Sunday against Miami. Lori Matthews says she feels good about this one. I do too. And I'm not sure if maybe it's because the pressure's off and it's like, we don't have anything to lose. The season is by all intents and purposes over. Like, you can kind of sit back and relax and kind of go about your business. Like, whatever happens, go out there and take care of business for sure. But it's like, they need a lot of help. And maybe you see a more relaxed version of San Francisco this Sunday. Now, you'd like to see that for the last 15 weeks, but I do feel oddly good about this game. Now, that said, I felt pretty good about the Rams game last week too, albeit I don't think anyone saw us scoring 6 points. So, I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday down there at Hard Rock in Miami, which I think it's the first time, maybe I'm wrong. Is this the first time the Niners have played in Miami since losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl in 2019? It feels like the first time they've been back. I don't think they have been. Maybe in 2020. That schedule, I have scrapped that from my mind, but this might be their first time returning to Miami since then. So, not the most fondest memories in Week 16 of the NFL season for the San Francisco 49ers. But they do have some bad news on the running game side of stuff. Isaac Guerendo is unlikely to play this Sunday, which means, so they lost Christian McCaffrey twice this year, essentially. The Achilles stuff, the PCL injury. They lost Jordan Mason to a shoulder, then he came back, then he's a high ankle sprain. He's done for the year. They lost Elijah Mitchell before the year even started, which is like, okay. Then you lose Isaac Guerendo now for at least it seems like 1 week with a hamstring injury. Not good, not fun. Like this is a down to your fifth string running back kind of season for San Francisco, which is just like, what the heck, man? Like, these guys cannot catch a break even when the season is over. They still can't catch a break. There's going to be no Trent Williams, which I've read and saw that he's still on the kind of the walking scooter. He can't even put pressure on his foot just yet. His season's probably over, so it's going to be a Jalen Moore left tackle, which even then, he has a hip injury. So they might play Sebastian Gutierrez and Austin Pleasance, who was a non-signed player in free agency a week and a half ago. So it's not great. You really could have your third string left tackle and your fifth string running back saying, hey, you got to win this one to keep our season alive, folks. So the odds are not stacked in San Francisco's favor. But through all of that, I do still feel pretty good about this one. Maybe it's because my non-belief in the Dolphins, or maybe it's just because the Christmas spirit, and we're like, hey, what do you got to lose? Draft pick spots, who cares? Just go out there and win some football games. If you go, let's say 9-8, there's no harm in that. You save what has been kind of a losing season, if you will. But no Isaac Guerendo. The Dolphins have a top 5 rushing defense in football, so the odds that San Francisco is even going to be able to run the football was going to be less anyways. Now you give me Patrick Taylor Jr., who I do like, mind you, but then it's Keyshawn Vaughn, and then it's Israel Bonaconda, which that's an awesome name, and he's a really good prospect coming out of college. But it's like the hope isn't high that San Francisco can run the football. And yes, Kawachito, losing is pretty advantageous. Say you go from pick 18 to pick 12, it certainly helps your odds. Maybe getting an edge rusher or a tackle. I think San Francisco. I have a really weird feeling, and I'm going to put this out there that. I know Trent Williams said he wanted to play till he's 40, which could still happen. But he the ankle injury and then he lost the kid. Like, how much does that take out of you? Either way, San Francisco will be really smart to draft a lot of offensive linemen this year. I like Jalen Moore as a backup. He's been a lot better this year than I thought he was going to be, which kudos to him, putting out a lot of hard work. That said, let's say they are pick 12. A tackle wouldn't be too bad. It'd be funny if they drafted a tackle this year at 12, say, because they were in that exact same position to pick Tristan Wirfs in 2020 and said, hey, Javon Kinlaw, come on down. So it'd be pretty, I don't know if it'd be ironic or whatever, but still pretty like, oh, okay, like, wow, what a coincidence. But no Isaac Guerendo. My faith is not really high in running the football. But on the other side, you have Devon Achane, who has had really a stellar season without Tua Tagovailoa playing the whole year. He is their speed demon. Raheem Mostert really hasn't been a factor in most games. Their rookie hasn't done much this year. It's been very much a Devon Achane kind of season for them, and he looks really good still in his second year. The speed's there, the power is still there. Like, he looks like a legit, like, I don't want to say an RB1, but a legitimate, like, top of the line rotation piece that can give you 12 to 15 carries a game. And he's quick as can be. They do things with him where it's end arounds, obviously it's screen passes, but you get him in space, you ain't gonna see him again. And for the Niners, you know, with Hufanga back and Greenlaw back, the run defense in one game, mind you, has looked 10 times better. It took Kyron Williams of the Rams almost 30 carries to hit 100 yards last week. It's pretty good. Pretty good run defense. That said, you know, this is a different offense. It's built on speed. And whether it's Hufanga, Mustafa, Charvarius Ward, Bernardo Green, Lenore, or Jair Brown, this is a team you have to be, like, you cannot give this Dolphins team space. Like, your tackling has to be, you know.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. Catch every moment of your team's playoff push with NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. You'll get amazing features like multi-view, and right now, it's only $49 for the rest of the NFL regular season. So give yourself the ultimate gift this holiday season. Get NFL Sunday Ticket for $49. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
On point the whole game. If it's not, good night. Because you give them space, they are going to run wild on you. Their offensive, their offensive output on the ground is not great, but it's a team where it's like the offensive line's banked up. They're not going to move you around defensively, but if, let's say, we've seen in the last month or so, Jair Brown doesn't contain the edge, or Mooney Ward, who's played better the last couple games, doesn't contain the edge, or misses tackles, or doesn't fill their gaps and their voids, you're going to let those speedsters get outside. And if they do, you're going to be in for a world of hurt against Miami on Sunday. So it's really imperative this Niners secondary contains the edge, plays it in front of you, and do not let these guys get into space. If they get into space, it's like a freaking roadrunner. It's just who can get to the end zone the fastest. These guys are quick. I know the offensive numbers don't say that. They're not great, but that speed is still in there in the offense, and they are almost fighting for more of their playoff lives compared to San Francisco. Like, they are sitting there like, yeah, we're 6-8, but the Broncos just lost against the Chargers tonight. They're saying, hey, we still got a chance at this. That said, if I'm the Niners and you got that 1%, less than 1% chance, play spoiler. Beat the Dolphins, knock them out. Beat the Lions, that's a very tough task, I know that, but beat the Lions, move them from the 1 seed to the 5th seed. Wouldn't that be something? Beat the Cardinals, knock them out. Like, you can play spoiler to a lot of good teams or borderline playoff teams, which is kind of a nice way to end your season. Although, Calachipto, yes, you are right. Losing does certainly help your draft stock, which isn't a bad thing to have or want after a year like this. But I think one of the biggest talking points has been that of Brock Purdy. He has, and his contract, have really, really, really kind of become the talking point of the year, or at least the last week and a half or so. It'll filter out the entire offseason. There's rumors, or there's at least conversations of Sam Darnold could be a fit, which, okay. Kirk Cousins got benched. Could he come back to San Francisco? And it's like, he's almost 40 off an Achilles injury. Not like I have a strain, a completely torn Achilles, and he's looked terrible in his last 5 games, 9 interceptions, like completely tanked the Falcons' playoff chances. So that said, this is a massive game for Brock Purdy. In the midst of all the conversation, the talk, which some of it's fake, mind you, like the Niners have overwhelmingly stated that Brock Purdy is their quarterback. They're going to pay Brock Purdy, but how much has yet to be indicated, how much has yet to be defined. Some say $65 million, reset the market. Some say 30, some say 50. It's all really about how he finishes the year out. Now, obviously, like, we cannot have recency bias on this. Like, what Brock has done the previous 2 seasons doesn't go away because of one bad year. Like, we watched C.J. Stroud take and turn over the entire AFC. Who's this guy? He's the next Mahomes. He was great last year. But now this year, it's not been a great season. He was good early. It's kind of started to kind of trickle down, and he's kind of tailed off towards the end. Albeit they're going to go to the playoffs. He hasn't been the same guy. Does one great year and one bad year offset? No. I think you have to say there's still that player in Brock Purdy somewhere. And Kyle Shanahan said today on KNBR, like, this team has been, like, there's nobody on this team. Like, again, 5th string running backs and backup left tackles and at times, like, backup guards and backup centers and backup linebackers and backup receivers. Like, it's just been a complete mess. And Brock Purdy's had to try to kind of steer that ship in the right direction and get it back on track. But we have so many moving pieces, so many repairs that have to be made throughout the year, it's almost impossible. Now, I'm not forgiving Brock Purdy on some mistakes he's made. The Rams game wasn't his best, whether it was the rain or just poor decision-making, he wasn't great. I want to see him bounce back. This is a great game where, out of the rain, hopefully, in Miami, to a dry place, against a relatively good defense. I don't think people realize, because Miami's 6-8, their defense has actually been really underrated. And again, they lost a ton of people this offseason. Their entire defensive line was just decimated by injuries and guys leaving in free agency. Just a complete, like, you talk about San Francisco being hurt by injuries, like, their defensive line is essentially our running back room. It's like every single person was gone for a certain period of time, whether it is losing in free agency. Jalen Phillips got hurt again this year, which sucks. They've had to piece their defensive line together. Now, Calais Campbell is there. He's had a really, really, really good season. Pre-trade deadline, I wanted San Francisco to make a move for him. Chop Robinson, their first-round pick. In the last month and a half or so, he's looked like a bona fide star and stud. A top 5 pass rushing productivity grade in the last month or so. And like, they're piecing things together, kind of trying to salvage this year, but they really don't have a cohesive unit. Like, they have Jalen Ramsey, and Javon Holland is phenomenal on the back end, and Kendall Fuller, but the linebackers, like, it's Jordan Brooks, and you don't really trust them. Like, they somehow have been able to find a way to put this thing together. But I do want to see Brock bounce back, because you can put a lot of people at bay. You come out there and you beat what has been thus far a top 10 defense in football in the Dolphins. You beat them by, let's say, 14 points, 10 points. You go out there and you go to 7-8, right? And you're like, oh, okay, wow, like, it's not a great record by any means, but you put that Cousins conversation to the side. You make that Sam Darnold conversation at least pause for a week or so, and you open yourself up for the potential to could put both those conversations to bed once the season's over with. Like Lori Matthews says here on the YouTube chat, I'd like to see Brock Purdy bounce back too. I certainly wouldn't replace him with Darnold or Cousins. Let's be somewhat objective here. Right. I mean, like, you want to replace, like, the whole Kirk Cousins conversation is, well, he would give San Francisco more time. It's a veteran. He knows the offense. He knows Kyle. And I think Cousins would be a great backup in San Francisco for a very, very, very restructured contract. But him as a starter, do you want a 37-year-old, like, non-mobile quarterback in your pocket in San Francisco with this offensive line? I don't think so. That doesn't make sense. Now, Sam Darnold's a different conversation. The arm talent is certainly there. He has 29 touchdowns and like 15 interceptions this year, around there. So there are there's gives and takeaways from Sam Darnold having a great year in Minnesota. I would not be shocked to see them keep him. I also wouldn't be shocked to see a team, let's say like the Rams, if Matthew Stafford retires. Hey Darnold, come on down. That's easily a possibility for for the Los Angeles Rams. He fits their system to a T. He fits with what they want to do, and I would hate to watch him carve up San Francisco's defense again. He is be a much cheaper contract for the San Francisco 49ers. That said, you already got the guy in the building. Like, Brock doesn't have the greatest arm, but he's shown you what he can do when things are going right, which is much better than what Sam Darnold has done any other year in his entire career. Now, we'll see what happens this season, but I have a very, very, very good feeling that the Vikings aren't going to the Super Bowl, but time will tell. That said, this is a massive last month-ish or so for Brock Purdy. You have to go out there and play better. He talked today with the media that I want to rekindle that chip on my shoulder. Okay, well, you have 3 weeks. The chip is on your shoulder, Brock. You have some fans, albeit they're asinine and delusional, saying like, get him out of here, replace him, give me a 37-year-old Kirk Cousins, give me Sam Darnold, who's had one good season since being drafted in 2018, and I'm saying, hey, Brock Purdy, you've been great for 2 of the 3 years you played, get him out of here. That chip's on your shoulder. You don't have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason, now Guerendo, and Mitchell and Ayuk. Chips on the shoulder. Their season is at a less than 1% chance to make the playoffs. Figure something out. You weren't great last week. Was it a blunder? Was it a 1 week kind of like, wow, I wasn't great? How do you find a way to push forward past that? How can you find a way to end that conversation about potentially replacing you happening outside the building? Now, let's be very honest here. It's only happening outside of the building. Now, I think San Francisco understands that, hey, we have to find a way to keep this thing together and make some tough decisions, but I don't think there is any inkling of not being committed to Brock Purdy in the building. That said, you want to put that conversation to bed on Fox Sports and ESPN and on some Niner YouTubers channels, beat the Dolphins. Play good against the Lions defense and beat the Cardinals. End this season on a high note, and I think they can. The Dolphins, have a top 10 red zone defense. Can you find ways to get in the end zone against Miami? Like, you somehow salvage your year and you look like yourself last year, or at least show a semblance of that. Like, imagine a version of Brock Purdy against the Bears the final 3 weeks of the season. Like, okay, fine. Like, that is not out of possible. Like that could happen. Like, Purdy has looked at times phenomenal. Other times, not so great. Can you find that middle ground and be who you were, a part of what you were last season? And look, the Dolphins may not have the best defense. They are top 10, but they have Javon Holland, a heck of a safety that'll probably set Talanoa Hufanga's market for him. They have Jalen Ramsey, Kendall Fuller. They have some pieces in place on that secondary, and unfortunately, a lot of Brock's poor play has come against man coverage. It's been defenses kind of betting and gambling on the Niners receivers not being able to separate. But for Brock, it's about hitting your throws. And I think for Purdy this year, when he talked today in his post or pre-practice press conference, he said there has been times where I have been trying to play too perfect. Well, we've talked about for a long time here on the show of, like, you want to see Brock Purdy be that gunslinger, right? You want to see him take risks and chances. I was looking at his numbers today on PFF, and last year he was top 10 in big-time throws in regards to percentage of his throws being big-time throws and how many big-time throws he took. I think last year was like 5%. He had about 32 big-time throws last year, which that just means it's a throw usually down the field or into a tighter window. This year, he's like in the 20s on both of those categories. And a lot of that is guys aren't getting open. He can't even trust guys to get open. And I'm hoping and begging, like, the Niners are going to watch a Dolphins team that is going to rely on speed. And Tyreek Hill and Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle and other guys in the offense. And I'm going to sit back and say, where's Pearsall on end arounds and screens? Where is Jacob Cowing? I get it. Those are young players. And we've talked long and hard about me saying, you know what, you can almost wash this year for Pearsall. But we're going to see what elements need to be added to this offense in the future. And hopefully the next 3 weeks or so, like, add some of that speed, add the elements there. I know Pearsall has kind of been this controversial talking point because of the one pass Purdy missed last week, which was a good pass was a play that should have happened. Purdy should have made that throw. It was a bad throw. He didn't hit him. Happened against the Bears too. So I want to see this Purdy-Pearsall connection finally kind of come together. You know, everybody likes peanut butter and jelly. That was Brandon Ayuk and Pearsall last year. Okay, well, some people like peanut butter and jelly and Nutella or put bananas in there. Like, people like these odd combinations. There's no reason as to why you can't find ways to get Pearsall involved. Like, I love Chex Mix. I want my Chex and my little pieces of bread and my M&Ms and my raisins, or that's trail mix, mind you. But, like, I want all these things. My peanut, like, I want all these things involved because they all together make a really good snack, right? San Francisco has the elements and the ingredients to have a really good offense still, even without Christian McCaffrey. But instead, like how Achito says here, no, give a washed Deebo Samuel the football while he's getting strapped by third cornerbacks and linebackers. And like, yeah, like, it was so, like, I had to scratch my head when Kyle Shanahan said in maybe 2 days ago that he didn't think Deebo Samuel had slowed down. And I was like, okay, if he didn't slow down this year, like, what do you call this? He's not looked the same. I get texts from friends every single game day of like, why is he getting the football? Wow, Deebo sucks. Wow, he's washed. He can't do anything. He can't block. He can't catch. Like, the body isn't there. The speed isn't there. Like, all he's good for is being a bona fide overpaid kick returner. And there may be some truth to those conversations for sure. I do believe Deebo Samuel can still be somewhat of a productive player, but I'd rather see these young guys get the opportunities. Now, I want Deebo to still play. I want Deebo to be involved in the offense, but instead of 8 targets for him, give 2 or 3 of those to Pearsall or Cowing. Give this offense that kind of electric gut punch they need. So I'm just hoping that, like, with this, like, last kind of, like, what do you have to lose 3 weeks of the year? It's not just, hey, let's phone it in, wrap it up, let's just kind of call it a day. It's almost the holidays. Season's almost over. Let's just get through to the end. Let's have this kind of senioritis mentality. And it's like, no, like, you don't have to innovate. You just got to put in the plays. Like, we saw end arounds, albeit it was an accident, to Pearsall against the Cowboys. You ain't seen that since. Like, these guys run 4-3, 4-4 for a reason. Why are they not being used? There is this, like, watching the Dolphins and Niners be in very similar situations, both 6-8, both less than 10% to make the playoffs, both teams playing different brands of the same scheme. One is we're going to ground and pound and grind you down and be physical. The other one is we're going to be quick and finesse. And it's like, what would make both of these offenses incredible and way better is if you combine the two. And San Francisco, unlike the Dolphins, has the pieces. Now, some of those guys need more time. Pearsall, Cowing, Guerendo, and got to get healthy with McCaffrey and Ayuk. But they have the pieces. Like, the Dolphins do not have the pieces to play a Niners brand of football. San Francisco has the pieces to play a Niners brand of football, but also play a speed finesse game like the Dolphins do. And I think the hope, at least, was when they drafted those guys in this past year's draft, was to let's kind of converge and merge these two offenses together in some way. But I want to see that. Like, I know it isn't just we'll put Pearsall in. Well, he has been in. And I'm not in the business of force-feeding people passes unless it is George Kittle, because Kittle's been otherworldly this year. But in regards to the conversation that Brock Purdy in the offense, like, this is a massive, like, not a test, but it is like a massive, like, you want to talk about chip on your shoulder. You want to talk about having an honest assessment of your season and, like, hey, like, I haven't played great. Like, I got to be better. Like, I have to stop playing so perfect and playing more free. While those things sometimes are hinged on your receivers getting open in man coverage, sometimes, like, playmakers make plays. And we've seen now Purdy with his legs, but your quarterback, you have to make plays with your arms. I want to see Brock play safe and be that gunslinger, but like I said early in the year, I'd rather you be a sniper than a gunslinger, where you are calm, cool, and collected, but when you see the opportunities, they may not be 10 times a game, but it's once or twice, 3 or 4 times. You see your shots downfield at the right time, take it. On 1st and 10, take it. On 2nd and 4, take it. Like, you can find yourself in these manageable spots to still be this creative quarterback and make plays with your arm. But
so, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
That's the issue with Brock so far this year. The arm really hasn't been there. And he said he isn't hurt, which, okay, we'll take it at face value. But if you're not hurt, then play better. And I'm hoping this next kind of month or so puts the injury stuff to bed, puts the quarterback controversy to bed, because it is all drawn up by people either looking for clicks or just saying, wow, what a down year, and not looking at the entirety of the picture. Like, I guarantee you, and I know it isn't an excuse, I am someone that firmly believes a franchise quarterback should be able to pick up your team and at least get you somewhere higher than 6-8. Brock has had the opportunities against the Rams, against the Cardinals early in the year to be the franchise quarterback, the superstar, the elite guy, and he hasn't done it. Other times, against the Rams early in the year, had it not been for a drop pass and a field goal, they win that football game. So there's been this kind of mixed bag of like, well, you've proven it in losses and you've disproven it in other losses. So you're hoping that can kind of figure itself out at the end of the year. Laurie Matthews says here that she'd feed Kittle and Jennings all day. Both are physical and can impose their will on the defense of the Miami Dolphins. This is a game where I think the Dolphins' defense linebacking position should be able to be picked on somewhat. The Dolphins' defense, albeit has been a top 10 defense this year, kind of like the offense. Like, I don't walk in scared of the Dolphins. I don't think anybody does, really. Even if you are the Titans, you're not like, oh, come play the Dolphins, I'm scared. You're like, okay, they're beatable. And I think, like, the Dolphins are a team that cannot beat anybody, but they can lose to anybody. They are a team that is very limited in how they can play offense and defense. They're like, Calais Campbell's been great, Chuck Robinson's been great, Holland's been great, but like, Jalen Ramsey really ain't that dude. Like, I don't know about you, but I know we talked about Deebo Samuel being washed. whenever he sees Jalen Ramsey, he gets up for a game. So we might see a vintage Debo simply because of Jalen Ramsey on the other side this Sunday down there at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, which would be pretty fun. Be like, where has this been all year long? I also don't think Debo has or is washed. Calachito right here on the YouTube chat. I understand the thought of, well, CMC and Ayuk covered up his inability as a real receiver. Yeah, I mean, Debo has never been a great receiver. He's a playmaker, a running back, if you will, that happens to play receiver. Because getting him out wide, it can do wonders for your offense. And really even then, like, other defenses respect Debo still. They double team him. They give him linebackers and safeties. They chip him sometimes. Like, other defenses respect Debo Samuel. The issue is that when he has the ball in his hands, he doesn't do anything with it. Like we talked about after the Rams lost, like, how dare you go on Twitter and talk about touches when it's like, bro, like, you've not been good. You've not been good this year whatsoever. But Jalen Ramsey's playing, and you just never know with Debo. There are too many memes of them going back and forth. Debo in the back of the end zone. I think it was last year maybe or 2 years ago. He hates that guy. Like, there's like a mutual respect and then equal mutual hate between Jalen Ramsey and Debo Samuel. So I know it comes in a rather meaningless game, but we are clinging to that 1% of playoff hopes, and maybe so is Debo Samuel. You just got to think, like, I know fans are like, I can't wait for this year to be over. It was a waste. Get to the draft, get a full offseason, get a fresh start. I have to believe the team feels that way to a certain degree as well. Like, maybe not George Kittle, maybe not Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw or Brock Purdy, but, like, I'm sure Debo Samuel cannot wait for this year to be over. I'm sure Trent Williams can't wait for the year to be over. I'm sure Nick Bosa cannot wait for the year to be over. I mean, Bosa called the game meaningless anyways. Like, he was like, I haven't played meaningless football ever in the NFL. I have no idea what this is like. So, like, that's, you can tell the mentality is like, man, like, I don't want to be here. Like, let's fast forward this puppy, get to the offseason, get rest up. But man, oh man. JD says here, having the Rams tie in Seattle in order to win the division is less than a 1% probability. Or, excuse me, less than a 1/10 of a 1% probability. Yeah, it's not likely. It's not likely. The wild card is much more feasible, but needs some help. Lori Matthews says here, Nick Bosa looks like this season has worn on him. He needs a spa day. Oh, I mean, Nick's from Florida, so I would not be shocked if he's like, why don't you guys just fly back without me? I'm going to go back home, go to the beach, just lay in the spa for a little bit, just stay in Miami for the next 2.5 weeks, and I'll see you guys during the exit interviews when it's all said and done, back, I don't know, in January somewhat time. But, I don't know, like, this team has been through so much, and you can see, like, in their mind, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it means, like, being done with the season. It's not like, oh, Super Bowl. It's like, I cannot wait to get 2024 in the books and behind us. You can tell these guys are tired. They're exhausted. They're just like, dude, this is a year from hell. Can we just move on with our lives and pick up the pieces in the offseason during the draft and try to make it anew? That said, I do want to kind of talk about Tua Tagovailoa. We haven't really talked about him here. Tyreek Hill is a player that Tua often goes to, right? He usually was the top target getter with Miami. But their offense has gone from this Ferrari, this Corvette, this kind of high-speed rocket that can score on one play. It really hasn't been that way for a variety of reasons we've already kind of touched on this year, whether it is the offensive line injuries or Tua being hurt or it's a bad year for the Dolphins. Did you know Tyreek Hill, for all the speed he has not caught a pass over 30 yards since week number 1? Yeah. Week number 1. So there's speed on the offense, but they really haven't been able to unlock it this year. It's been, the car's in the shop. And the car's, and needs a new engine. It needs a new transmission. The tire's flat. Oh, the rim's messed up. Oh, the bumper came off. It's like the Dolphins feel like that's kind of been happening all year for them. And Tyreek Hill, who usually is the number one offensive weapon on the team, has been held at bay. Now, he's an older player, isn't the same person and player he once was, but again, it's Tyreek freaking Hill. It's the cheetah. Not many big plays in this one, but I do think if he plays Jalen Waddle and Hill out there, their speed just gives a secondary a different test. That, like, Puka Nacua, for as good as he is, and Cooper Kupp for as good as he is, albeit Lenore locked up Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp had no catches for no yards last week. Like, Lenore was logging that dude, former offensive player of the year, mind you, down. Like, talk about just complete and utter domination. They lost that game 12-6. It was not because Lenore was not cooking Cooper Kupp on defense all day. But the Dolphins, I think, unlike other teams, have the ability to get behind you at a more consistent level. And I think for a secondary that has Hufanga and Jair Brown, who are two slower safeties, but also have Mustafa back, who's a rookie safety, it's a really good kind of test and assessment as to see, okay, where are you back, or where are your coverage skills against a faster receiver like Hill or Jalen Waddle. How do you react? How do you play? Like it just kind of gives you more of a picture as to, or more of an insight into them as players, right? I want to see, I know Lenore can cover these guys. Travarius Ward can cover for the most part these guys. But Bernardo Green, this is your first time covering Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. How do you rebound? How do you cover guys with this kind of speed? It's a different test for the secondary. They haven't had this all year long. No other team in the NFL has this kind of speed. Not the Chiefs, not the Cardinals, not the Patriots, not the Jets. Nobody else has it. Not the Rams. Even the Bills don't have this. The Packers, although the Packers of most teams probably have it more than most teams, don't have this. So a different test. My eyes are going to be on that kind of back seven, if you will, of the defense. Warner, Greenlaw, and Winters, and then Mustafa, Hufanga, Brown, whoever's playing, and then Green and Lenore, and Travarius Ward. That is going to be the matchup. How does this defense handle speed? And also, if Nick Bosa doesn't play, which I know he practiced yesterday, but then didn't practice today, so I'm not sure if it's kind of a one day on, one day off leading up to Sunday. Not sure if he had a setback. I'm sure we'll hear tomorrow from Kyle Shanahan, but not entirely sure. But if there's no Nick Bosa, how do you find ways to get to the quarterback? Tua is not a mobile quarterback. And because of the concussions, he's been less mobile. Now, to his credit, albeit maybe his detriment, he don't mind getting hit. And I'm not saying hurt the guy, but you are going to have an opportunity, because Tua does not play football in the smartest way, to hit him. And there is a genuine fear in me that Dre Greenlaw running 110%, might legit kill Tua Tagovailoa. It's not going to be on purpose, and it's not going to be, what we all want to see, but my goodness, I just know an amped up Dre Greenlaw is uncontrollable at times. He is the Draymond Green of this team at times. And when he sees red or he gets in his road rage, he just goes nuts. And it's not intentional to hurt somebody, but you have a player like Tua where you're just there's a history there with the injury, and you're just hoping wear the Guardian cap, dude. Please wear the Guardian cap. I want to see you be able to live a happy life. But Tua's still having an odd year. He's not seeing the field the same way. There was a really great play against the Texans last week where Derek Stingley, was it Derek Stingley? I think it was Stingley, where the Dolphins run this play, and Stingley jumps the route. drops the interception. Like, the next drive, run the exact same route, Stingley jumps in front of it and gets the pick. And it was like, yeah. Like, it was either Bullock or Stingley. Either one of those guys in Houston. Both are pretty good players. But it's like, Tua's just not seeing the field the same way. And we have seen a steep decline in takeaways this year from the San Francisco defense. I think that's a Funga thing. I think it's dropping 3 interceptions against the Rams last week thing. But I think San Francisco intercepts Tua Tagovailoa twice this Sunday. Like, he's going to force up their, like, if you make the Dolphins play from behind, while they're not going to give up, you are going to see Tua force throws. And in an odd way, like, you're almost begging Tua to be this $50 million game manager at times. And I just don't think he has that in him. I think he is much more a risk taker, a gambler. He wants to push that ball down the field. And I think San Francisco could be in a good place to get some takeaways finally. Like, turn a game on its head, get takeaways. And I don't know about you. The more times I get to see Brock Purdy in the offense on the field, the better. You cannot stall out on every single drive in a football game, unless you're playing the Rams, obviously, on Thursday Night Football. But I want to see Brock Purdy have the ball in his hands with ample opportunity to bounce back. I want to see Patrick Taylor Jr. and Israel Bonaconda and Keyshawn Vaughn. I want to see Pearsall and Cowing. Like, I want to see this team merge the Dolphins and Niners mentalities and offenses together in this last 3 weeks. And what a better time to do that than in a game like this when you're playing the Miami Dolphins. You have the pieces. You have the ingredients. Mix that bowl together and make that amazing cake. Make that trail mix. The raisins and the peanuts and the M&Ms and the Chex and the bread. Like, I want to see it all. You have the ingredients. Let's figure it out. Lori Matthews says here, so good to have Dre Greenlaw back out there. I hope they find a way to keep him. He plays the way old football players used to play. The old school football players, mind you. I'm 28 years old. When I think of like hard-nosed, smash-mouth football, I think of the Ravens and the Steelers in the mid-2000s. When it was Big Ben, it was Joe Flacco, and those guys just went toe-to-toe. Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs, Cam Hayward, Larry Foote, Polamalu, Ed Reed, and it was James Harrison, and all those guys were just like, every play is 110 miles an hour. Every play is, I'm going to take your head off. I hate the guy across from me. While I don't think the hate is there from Jay Greenlaw, he certainly wants to take your head off every single play. And he is that throwback kind of player, and I think it's a player that you can't afford to lose. You have to re-sign Dre Greenlaw this offseason. I think they're going to, like, him and Ufunga are the two guys where you're like, you have to come back. Like, this defense has shown what it looks like without you, and it is not great. Like, late in fourth quarters, you have to have players like Dre Greenlaw and like Talanoa Hufanga. Those guys make plays. Those guys get takeaways. Those guys are clutch defensive players. You can't afford to lose. If you lose them, it's a massive loss for you and a massive gain for whoever signs them. There are teams hoping and begging to find players like Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga. But for a score prediction in a rather meaningless game, but minus 1% doesn't mean zero yet for the playoff hopes. I think San Francisco wins this game. Let me think. San Francisco wins this game. Are they going to get to 30? I think San Francisco wins 28-23. That's a good number, right? Score 4 touchdowns, get to the red zone a few times. Dolphins are top 10 red zone defense, mind you, but maybe get in the red zone a few times. Maybe it's a Pearsall. Maybe it's Cowing. I think it'll be close, but I do think San Francisco's defense is on the field to end the football game because the offense takes care of business in a hopefully dry environment that is Florida this Sunday. And I don't know if their playoff hopes stay alive, but maybe spoil the Dolphins season and get to 7-8 and maybe put yourself in a position to I don't know, make some weird Christmas miracle improbable run towards the wild card. Not impossible, it's not probable, but we shall see how Week 16 comes to be. That said, I want to ask you kindly to like, share, subscribe as you exit out of the show. Leave with a like. Comment down below on what you want to see from the San Francisco 49ers the remainder of the season. If you could, on the audio podcasting platforms, give us that 5-star review. It is the freest, easiest, and most effective way to help the show out in the ratings and on the charts. If you also could follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And just for you, a holiday treat from me to you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Here is a $20 off discount to SeatGeek.com by using promo code 49ersaccess, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Again, to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. You can also go to SportsSpyder.com, your one-stop shop for all your favorite teams' latest news, podcasts, and articles in one place, categorized by your favorite sport and your favorite team. And on the way out, as JD says here, just win. Olada, just win, baby, a la Jimmy Garoppolo when he used to be here in San Francisco. Or if you're an old head, how about Al Davis and the Raiders? RIP. Although we hate the Raiders here on the show. That said, let's head out. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Merry Christmas. Happy Holidays. Enjoy Week 16. Maybe that less than 1% chance to go to the playoffs finds a way to increase to 2% if they can keep their playoff hopes alive with a win this Sunday. My name is Sterling Bennett. I want to thank Lori Matthews, JD Durham, Jim Everett the Great, who is the biggest Rams fan of them all in the YouTube chat, Cowachipto, and many, many more. My name is Sterling Bennett, and as always, stay faithful.